because notice that this image goes from brightness to darkness. And this is not how taking a picture works. So they have this set up here backwards, if anything. And what we have found is that during this flash of light, the video resolution quality gets downgraded. And this is something that you can double check for yourselves. Later, we will discuss another artificial flash of light. In this section of this video, we are going to show you more about a CGI operation trying to exit its computer boundaries to become a reality in this world. And now we come to this black framing system of this video, and here again we see two groups of people, two different computers working with two different sets of this whole CGI production. One group is working with the high definition aspect of it because that's what the video is showing here. Another group is working with the low resolution of the video. Okay, when they inserted the frames, they were supposed to verify that these two frames look the same, and from far away they do, but actually there are some little mistakes, and we don't know if it was that they never looked at it, they never compared the two framing system. But here we have some small mistakes that are major because this is happening in outer space and in front of the whole world to see it. And so now, as we continue to chase this CGI man, what is going on with this 1960 look that we are getting? And there are two things we want to share with you here. Number one, the reason why they are using black and white film here is because we showed you before that these are CGI framings that they have, and these framings are black. The problem is that part of this black frame runs across the screen. You see? If they had placed a color film as a backdrop under this CGI black frame, we would have known right away that this film was a hoax. So they were forced to use a black and white film. Now, in the landing area here, they have the same problem and much more, because not only do they have a black and white framing, but also they were afraid that if they show this terrain in color, the way this dust is flying around and the way it looks in color, we would have known what this thing is. For the people who have experience working with black and white images and film, they know for a fact that in black and white filming or images, you can turn any mistakes into shadows and everything's fine. However, in the color filming, you don't have that option. And here we find another artificial flash of light. For example, take a look at the flash of light that is coming up on your bottom right. This is the area of the flash of light that you just saw. Okay? Now think about this. The Chinese probe, it's a few miles away from the surface of the moon, which means that in this image, we are looking at several thousand square miles of the moon's surface. And so now, with this in mind, we ask you, what camera do you know has a flash powerful enough to travel a few miles and at the same time to illuminate a few thousand square miles? In this section, notice that as the Chinese probe prepares to land, the color of the moon terrain, it is a light grayish. And as the probe gets even closer to the surface of the moon, notice the sugar-like particles flying around loose from the terrain being thrown out by the Chinese probe thrusters. And what this means is that this area here, it is extremely dry terrain, which is what it's supposed to be. Okay? Now, here's something that we want you to stop and think about. Why in a moment like this, instead of a super clear HD in vibrant color film, instead the Chinese used a low degraded black and white film. A black and white film which allows us to look at the surface of the moon and see nothing and learn nothing. But now, on this section, here the moon terrain seems to have a two-tone coloring. The problem is that this brownish color that we see here on the surface of the moon, this type of coloring only comes out when we have some type of moisture on the land. And now, as the Chinese rover steps into the moon terrain, look how deep and well defined the tracks that it's making. And not only that, but notice that the color on the terrain where this probe is making the tracks on, this terrain here is turning into a darkish color. Do you see it? Before we share our next theory with you, let us go down to the planet Earth and head on to the Sahara Desert. As you watch these two vehicles move across the Sahara Desert, notice that these two vehicles are moving on a bone-dry terrain of very fine sand where it has not rained in thousands of years. These two vehicles are not leaving behind deep and well-defined tracks. And what we find very critical is that notice how the color of the sand in the Sahara Desert never changes, indicating that these two vehicles are moving on a very dry layer of sand that is several feet deep. And the reason why we took the time to show you these two vehicles traveling on the desert, it is because this is the type of terrain where the Chinese probe first showed the world that they were landing on. And what we want to show you is that in this type of terrain, it is not possible to make the type of tracks that they are showing the Chinese rover making on the moon. And what we think that they did here is they switched the terrains. They had to. Why? If on the moon they would have shown to this world a rover on black and white, they would have been buried with the word fake on it. They knew this. But also, when the rovers stepped into the stage, here they were free to use color film because the black frames have been placed very conveniently to the side of the screen. Here, they don't have to worry about it. And just like we show you they did with the rover, this is the same thing they are doing with the terrain now. Anyway, we went online looking to see if they had an image of this event, and this is the one we found. In the film, we noticed that they had darkened this area. So we are going to brighten this area a little bit. First, if you look at the terrain, you will notice that at the center, where the rover is, it looks real reddish. Okay, our theory is, and remember, this is a theory that we have. You see, they have planted for the rover to make some dramatic tracks on the moon. Never mind what the scientific data says about the moon's surface, okay? But they had one problem. They are on the planet Earth. And if they show these type of tracks to people on the planet Earth, some scientists may recognize the land. So what they did was, they went out and got themselves a nice piece of land, and to hide the face of the planet Earth, they sprayed it with this red chemical stuff. We know that some of you may get very upset with us for making this video. And so for you, we have one of those last minute pesky questions. On this video, this is the first time that the Chinese rover stepped into the moon terrain. Do we have this right? If so, we notice that as the rover is going down the ramps, these ramps are falling apart with the rover making holes all over it. So when we examined up closely one of these ramps, we saw all these strange holes. And in these holes, we see one of the reasons why they had to switch the rovers. Because whatever this material that these ramps are made out of, it seems to be very weak. And then we noticed that there is moon terrain spread out all over these ramps, and this is not possible. And the rover couldn't have placed this moon material on these ramps, because when the rover went down the ramps, the rover destroyed these ramps and it could not get back on it. And so we were wondering, how on earth did this moon terrain get on these ramps? First of all, we are not Oriental and we don't understand, nor do we speak Chinese. Also, these people are not telling us what to do nor where to look. This video was made based on our own knowledge, expertise, and experience in the imaging enhancements techniques. This is our work that you are seeing in this video.